All right, the Senate has passed the 27.5 trillion naira renewed hope budget for a second reading after various deliberations by senators who acknowledged President Bola Tinubu's plans for a better Nigeria. Now, the budget was passed and referred to the Committee on Appropriations after being put to a voice vote by the Deputy Senate President Jibrin Barau, who presided over the session. Recall that President Bola Tinubu had unveiled the 27.5 trillion naira budget for the 2024 fiscal year and was presented to a joint session of the National Assembly to undergo scrutiny and deliberation for final approval. The president pegged the budget deficit for the 2024 fiscal year at 9.18 trillion naira, which represents 3.88% of Nigeria's gross domestic product. Tinubu stated, quote, 9.18 trillion naira deficit is lower than the 13.78 trillion naira deficit recorded in 2023, which represents 6.11% of GDP. He also added that the administration will limit the inflation rate to 21.4% in 2024, with tax and fiscal policies currently being reviewed. Joining us in the studio to discuss more on this development is public affairs analyst Michael Adeleye. Now, this is the Michael Adeleye.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Right. Now, there's been divergent reactions to this budget and the breakdown. There are those analysts who have said that this is not a departure from what we have known over the years. And there are those who have said, well, it shows or reflects the president's renewed hope agenda. I wonder where you stand with regards to this budget.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's a mix of reaction from every angle of the economy. If you look at the budget compared to the budget of his last, or the last administration, his predecessor, there's a little bit of hope in there. I would agree with that. But again, if you look also at the debt profile of the country, is actually alarming. We're in the region of about 9 trillion. Sorry, not 9 trillion, 9 trillion deficit.
Yes.
At the moment. Yes. That we need to find it. How are we going to finance that? We're going to have to go borrowing again. So that's going to push up our debt profile to a very alarming rate. So that is very worrisome. Now, for me, every country in the world go borrowing, and there's always that deficit nature of every economy of the world. But the point is, what do we use the budget for? We need to look into our fiscal policy. How do we spend money in this country? We have various ways of reckless spending, corruption that goes on. And if we don't take care, every single year, we're going to have to go into deficits, and we're going to have to go borrowing. And that's going to put more pressure on the economy. And how do we service that? That is the question. The country that has the highest deficit in the world is Japan, around about over 600% debt to GDP ratio. But the issue there is they have economy policy that they're going to have to use to actually be able to monitor and service those debts. But in this country, we don't have a policy in place to actually say, okay, if we go borrowing, how are we going to manage those funds, those debts? So that is my worry as part of this administration, yes.
Right, and then there is also the concern about the weak naira status, how this may impede the successful implementation of this next year budget, especially when you look at the fact that forex market also remains volatile. What do you say in that regard?
This administration floated a naira, which is a great one. But the question is, how do we actually monitor what's actually working in naira? Every country that has problem of manufacturing, that has problem of exportation, there's no way and how you will have to manage the naira to actually bring down the pressure on the naira. We have to look into our manufacturing process in this country. How do we implement to make sure that we attract investors to come into the country? I mean, if you look at the naira compared to the dollar and to the pounds, for example, it's actually too much pressure on the naira because everything that we consume in this country are imported. So if we don't export, we don't manufacture, how do we balance those areas? So the forest is actually an issue that we have to look into in this country as well, yeah.
So let's also perhaps take a closer look at some of the allocations made, which has also generated concerns. Talking about the matter of education and healthcare, where we have never hit the 15% target put forward at the Abuja Declaration since 2010.
Yeah.
And that's about 13 years now. And there were those who had said that perhaps we might see a departure from what we have always known over the years, but that is not seemingly the situation as it is with regards to this current budget, and we are seeing the situation with our health sector and our universities as it is, where we are seeing a number of doctors, leaving in droves out of the country, and we're also seeing the deplorable state of our universities as it is. What are your concerns with regards to this?
My concern is that we need more investments into education. We need more investment to the health sector as well. The amount of money that we spend on health holidays, that people live in this country to go for health treatment out of this country, is at an alarming rate. If we don't invest into that sector, we will continue to see people moving out, our doctors, our nurses, because there's no enabling environment for them to actually stay in the country. And if they leave this country to go to another country, they get paid. The welfare system has been looked into, the wages have been looked into, but in this country, we keep having this labor issue, union issue in this country concerning our health sector and the education sector as well. If you look at all our schools, our public schools are actually going down the drain. That's why we have every caricature of education springing up everywhere in the country. Many years ago, about 2 or 3 decades ago, public school used to be the school that everybody wants to go into. But what do you see these days? Private institutions springing up everywhere. Now, another question is, who monitors the quality, the curriculum of all these schools, universities, secondary school, nursery school, that springs up every day? Now, every parent wants to put their kids into a quality educational environment. But if we don't have it, and the reason is because the government are not investing the amount of percentage that's been needed to invest into that sector, and it's a big problem. Now, speaking onto the health area as well, if you look at our hospitals, we don't have the appropriate equipment to actually put in those hospitals. So we don't have our doctors to work on. That's why we have our doctors, when they go out, they perform excellently. Because theoretically, they're very good, but practical area, and I mean, in that sector, there's nothing to work with. So the government needs to put in more money into the health sector to stop our foreign exchange going out for people that go out of the country to spend their money on health holiday. The education one as well, if you look into that one critically, most people are sending their kids out, even to Ghana, to Cotonou, to actually spend money for the kids to go for educational standard. We don't have it in here. And the reason is our curriculum are not balancing. I'll give an example. In the UK, for example, if they have shortage of teachers or doctors, what they do is they have a roundtable with all the institutions. And what they do is they give an incentive into all those educational sectors so that it will attract people to go study that shortage of manpower that they lack in the country. But we don't do that here. Everybody wants to go to school. And I keep saying this all the time. University is not for everybody. What is happening to our technical education? We don't have funding in there. What is happening to all those areas? Years back, we used to have people that go to study plumbing, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering in our technical education sector. But now, that is dying. Everybody wants to go into university, but it's not for everybody. If we don't invest the appropriate money, we don't have the funding, the budget for that education sector, it will keep going down, and everybody wants to go out to go and study elsewhere. So that is going to put pressure on our forex. The same thing on the health sector. If we don't put the amount of money into our hospital, into our health institution, it will put pressure on our forex, and everybody will take their money out to go spend abroad. And that is a lot of pressure on the naira.
Even the security, architecture, boosting security in Nigeria also forms, a sizable proportion of, this budget that is before us, next year's budget, that is. But then we've seen analysts say over the years, security, for example, takes up, a majority of the allocations, but then what do we have as a result? Do you share that opinion, or do you see it as, well thought out?
I think, again, that is the will of the government. We have a lot of money, billions being spent in that sector for security apparatus and security personnel as well. But the question is, what are the results? It's not giving us the expected result that we're expecting as a populace. Now, if the security architecture is not totally overhauled, we're not going to have that result we're looking for. Now, if you look at the budget now, the majority, a quantum of that budget goes into security. But we're hoping. It's been called Renew Hope budget, but let's see what's going to happen. I can't criticize the government at this point in time until after the budget. We're going to see what happens in the next 24 months.
But, it has passed second reading. Is there anything the Senate can do to address some of the issues, concerns you have raised here right now? Because though there has been concerns of budget padding and all that we have...
That happens every year.
Yes,
yeah.
But these critical sectors, what should the Senate do? National Assembly?
There's been a lot of criticism coming up that it's a rubber stamp 10th Assembly. I don't see anything much different that's going to happen. Ideally, the people who are actually looking after the budget, the legislature, they have their own issue that we are dealing with at the moment. The way they spend it, if we have around about over 70% of our revenue going to the National Assembly, if they don't cut that down, do you think they're going to be able to criticize the executive that they're spending too much? They can't do that because they are the one consuming majority of our money, of our revenue. So I don't see anything spectacular happening from the National Assembly because ideally they have their own padded funding in that budget as well. So it's not going to change anything dramatically.
But they've said that they've expressed the resolve in their remarks to the president at the time of the presentation that if they would have to, they would see to the unbundling of some agencies and even merger of some agencies to see that this is the document that indeed comes to life and brings the issue of renewed hope to Nigerians. You still don't see that?
Because our time is...
I agree with that. They need to merge some MDAs, some agencies together because we have too much expenditure going into various agencies that we don't even need at this point in time. Okay. If we need to cut and tighten our belt, we need to begin to cut down on our reckless spending on the current administration that we have at the moment.
Michael Adeleye, Public Affairs Analyst, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Well, let's tell you now that the views and reactions of all our resource persons are theirs and have no connection with TVC News. Up next is Your View with the ladies, and afterwards is This Morning with Yori Folarin. Stay safe. Bye for now.